Okay. And everybody ready to go? All right. Why don't we please go ahead and call our meeting to order? If I could ask everyone to rise for a moment of silence, and then we'd ask Tammy to lead us in the pledge of the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tammy. Shall we call the roll?
Mrs. Sandberg?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingleton?
Here.
Mr. Sherwood? Mr. Stone?
Good.
Mrs. Tackett?
Thank you. We have a quorum. And I've spoken with both Connie and Mr. Showalter. Yeah, what's that guy's name down the end? I've talked to Connie and Mark. Mark's out of state, and Connie had a conflict that she just couldn't avoid tonight. Since we had a rather light agenda, told them that'd be, not that they need our permission, but told them that'd be okay. Each of you have a copy of the minutes of our last meeting, if you'd like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Motion there.
Thank you, Todd.
Second.
And second, thank you, Karen. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Each of you should have also received a copy of the check register, if you could indicate if you received that. Thank you. Okay, let's see, Karen, is there a public sign-in sheet down there? Right over there. I failed to fetch that before we got started. Thank you. Let's see, number first on the list is Casey Mattingly.
Thanks for having me. My name's Casey Mattingly at 123 Carabrin Drive. I wanted to talk about the code enforcement that I submitted for property 207-30-022.002. I believe Councilwoman Tangle Sims brought it up last time. And since I did submit the enforcement request, I thought I could come and maybe clear some things up. I think there might be some mischaracterizations of the property and some confusion on why this property isn't enforced. To give you background, I moved in to 123 Carabrin, built my house in July of 2021. At the time, my property backs up to a green space that at the time was owned by Ball Homes. Since then, the Landing HOA has formed. They acquired the property and they refused to maintain portions of that property. I submitted a code enforcement request in early June. I had several back and forths with code enforcement. I finally was able to talk to a code enforcement officer. He was really great to work with and helped clarify a lot of issues. He stated that that property has always been a hands-off enforcement property in the recent years because it was deemed a wetland, so they could not enforce it. I asked him how he determined it was a wetland. He said that he had a copy of a Army Corps of Engineers permit stating that it was a wetland. I asked him if I could have that, and he told me he could not provide it, but did suggest I go to Open Records to get it. So I did that, went to Open Records and got it. He provided me with all the transactions of the property, and that's why I'm here today, to talk through that and maybe help you or you help me understand what I'm missing or what you guys are missing as far as not being able to enforce it. I have a packet here for you guys.
Well, and we'd like to get your packet and hear the matter. Normally under public comments, we take about 5 minutes and listen to you.
Yeah.
If it's a large issue that needs working out, we normally do it outside of a meeting. We have talked about wetlands and would like to see your packet.
Yeah,
Sorry
absolutely.
to interrupt you, but
No, you're fine. You're completely
we're not going to
fine.
do a full debate about it tonight.
I tried to, there's a lot of papers here, and it's not all pertinent. A lot of it was from the Open Records request, so I wanted to give you everything that I was privy to make sure you guys understood. I went through at the top corner and put numbers on everything and highlighted pertinent information. And I can probably run through the important stuff in less than 5 minutes, and you guys can talk about it afterwards if that's how you want to do it.
Well, first, our city attorney is the one who has been advising us. Wetlands are something we're not experts in,
Well,
but
correct.
we know that they're protected lands.
Correct.
And we've been advised, we're not trying to not do the right thing, and our city attorney's been working on this. Maybe, Devin?
Actually, Tim and I have a meeting set tomorrow, I believe, to discuss this, and I've reached out to Ben Krebs at Engineering, because obviously, even if a portion is designated as a wetland, that doesn't mean that the entire thing is not subject to maintenance. So, and you're right, Karen brought this up in public comments or council comments last meeting, so I would definitely like to see any
Correct.
information you have.
And I should give you some background. I'm a professional engineer. I specialize in stream restoration, wetland restoration, stormwater green infrastructure design.
That's
So
handy
I'm
in
very
this situation.
familiar with what is a wetland and what is not a wetland. That's kind
Well,
of
that's
why I put
handy.
this
Thank
packet
you.
together. I don't know exactly who I'm supposed to give it to.
Thank
but
you.
I have 10 copies.
That's about perfect.
And I have an 11th one. I can give somebody that need it as well. for the moment. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. So just real quick going through the package. The first 3 pages are basically just the property information that I got from PVA. Pages 3 through 28 are the open records request information I got. Particularly if you turn to page 22, that was the notice of violation that was submitted by somebody in June of 2018, citing the offense on the same property, which is long vegetation. I think that's what started initially back in 2018. Going backwards to page 5, I put them out of order accidentally, but page 5 is the email that came from code enforcement to the Ball Homes representative about the wetlands conversation, basically saying, hey, it's a wetland, you don't have to do anything anymore. And I think that comes from some conversation between them. But page 6 through 27 is basically the information that was provided to code enforcement when Ball Homes said it was a wetland. And it all started because they tried to extend the permit for the Corps of Engineers back in 2018 or 17 for a project that was first permitted in 2005. That project was supposed to take the ponds out and do a full-blown stream restoration, restore the corridor. It never got done, still hasn't been done, which isn't the issue. But the point of that is that permit is where they decided it was a wetland. But if you look at the permit, the only thing referenced in the permit is intermittent streams and ephemeral streams, which are not wetlands, which there is a stream that bisects the Caribbean side and the McIntosh Park side. There's a stream that runs through it. That's not a wetland. And specifically, if you look at page 16, these are the engineering plans that were submitted with the original permit. Page 16 shows the property in question. I've highlighted in yellow the property in question. Stream B goes right through it. They're currently mowing the McIntosh Park side of the property, but not the Caribbean side of the property. And if it's all under the same ordinance of a wetland, then they're violating that wetland. But furthermore, it is not a wetland. There are 3 specific parameters to be a wetland: aquatic vegetation, hydrology, and soils. You have to have 2 of those 3. That property has none of those. I've not done soil samples, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be aquatic hydrology or aquatic soils. So that is my kind of where we are. And furthermore, page 29 shows the property in blue. I've highlighted the area in red I'm concerned about, which is what backs up to my property on Caribbean. Once again, that's the only area of that property they're not maintaining. They're maintaining the McIntosh Park side of it, because it happens to be the HOA president and secretary's backyards, but they're not doing our side. Furthermore, just to make sure you guys believe me, I printed out screenshots from the National Wetland Inventory, which is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's a database of all wetlands in Kentucky, nationwide actually. I've listed the property. Once again, it shows the intermittent stream that goes through the property. There are no wetlands listed on that property in the wetland inventory. Furthermore, on page 32, I also did the EPA NEPA Assist database, which is also a jurisdictional determination database of all features that is owned by the EPA. Once again, it shows the stream, but it shows no wetland on that property. And the last three things of that package are just pictures of 5-foot thistle invasive exotic species that backs up to my backyard. And I guarantee none of you guys would want it right next to you. If they're saying it's a wetland, it's not a wetland. And if it's not a wetland, why can we not enforce it? Why are the HOA not held to the same accountability that we hold developers to when they develop the space, especially if they're doing it in their neighbor's backyard? So I appreciate your time. I'm sorry if I went long.
No, this is very detailed and helpful
I'm
information.
welcome to talk to any of you guys, whenever.
And you've got a meeting scheduled, is that right?
I don't they do.
Oh, you're meeting with Tim to talk.
And I have
about
talked to
this.
Ben. Ben has reached out to me. I think he knows it's not a wetland too, but obviously lawyers get involved. I don't know, but
No, I'm definitely speaking with Ben about what portion can be maintained and what can't. We just, Tim and I hadn't been able to yet on it.
yeah. I mean, and if the impetus is that, oh, it's a wetland, we can't maintain it. Wetlands are protected by the Section 401 and Section 404 Act of Clean Water Act, but it's to fill streams or wetlands or jurisdictional waters. It's not to maintain or mow vegetation. So I don't understand, even if it was a wetland, which it's not, even if it was, why we can't enforce that ordinance like everybody else.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Taylor Rogers.
Hey there. My name is Taylor Rogers. I live at 121 Carabrin Cove. I'm actually neighbors with Casey. And I don't really have much to add to what he did a great job putting together a packet that, displays factually the information about the stream. I guess the only thing I would add is just I'm really excited for you guys to take a look at this and help us with this and try to get this handled. This is pure conjecture, but from my perspective, based on conversations that Casey and I had with the HOA members around, I believe, April, I got the sense that they are not taking care of that side of the stream because we are not part of their HOA. They mentioned something when we were speaking with them in April that they would love to have us, our section of the neighborhood is not part of theirs, and they would love to have us kind of adopted into their section, and then they would be, happy to take care of it, happy to mow the grass or whatever, or allow us to mow the grass, because I've tried mowing the grass when I moved in before I kind of knew the boundaries, and they sent me a cease and desist letter in the mail, for trying to take care of it. So anyway, I have young kids, and they're on the way in like 5 days. So, I would love to have a backyard. I know that space is not ours to use, but it would be nice to not have a backyard that's overrun by insects and invasive plants and that kind of thing. So, any help you guys can offer for us, we greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
In your house packet is the gospel music show again. Everybody remember the gospel music show?
Yeah.
Yes. Myself and Officer Payton met with Mr. Samuel. And we believe that police can contain it and they'll break down and they won't get in the farmer's market way. All good. He has everything. So I just need you guys to approve it if you want to.
Good. Thank you.
Friday, Saturday.
Thank you. Everybody with the second? Any questions?
Second, first,
Motion's been made and second. Just a vote in the affirmative if you like the idea.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. That carries. Is that all you had, Madam Clerk? Under Mayor's comments, just a couple. We don't have a contract for you to approve tonight, but we've gotten some really good news update on the streetlights that the council's been wanting at some of the exits, where we have some really dark exits, and we really want to light them up. But council wanted the more attractive streetlights than just wooden poles in those areas. So we've been investigating the cost of that with Kentucky Utilities. The good news is we found out that that cost is not as prohibitive as we thought it might be. So it's we think gonna be less than $20,000 maybe. So it's something that we can definitely bring back and approve. There's a separate contract where we now have to bury the utilities, and that takes a separate permit and a separate contract. So Eddie's working out that, and we can bring it to you all in one package. But we're pretty encouraged about that after a long time. So Mark would choose tonight not to be here when he's asked about that for about 2 or 3 years. But tonight's when we found out about it. Also, if you drove out here tonight, you know we're working on West Main Street. It is impossible to avoid. It's going to be worth it when it's done. It's really looking pretty, but West Main Street really is a mess right now with all the steel plates. And I think on Sunday we blocked it for a handful of hours. And but that work is proceeding nicely, and hopefully it'll be cleaned up pretty soon. Walking that project has, and looking at it closely, has redirected some of our attention back on Water Street. We've talked about Water Street a lot, and an ultimate goal of making Water Street kind of a destination, and we think this project will contribute to that. But in the last couple of years, with COVID and other things and our focus in other places, if you drive down Water Street tonight, as I walked it last night, you'll be disappointed. The weeds are spouting up between sidewalks and buildings, and sidewalks and the street. Some of the buildings are not that well kept. And we're doing a wonderful public beautification project right next to this area. And I think we have an obligation to clean up again. So I called Tim this morning, and code enforcement's been hard at work, evaluating and contacting people. I called Lori Saunders this morning, and I think Lori was surprised. I said, Lori, we started on making Water Street a special place 7 years ago, and today it looks worse than it did 7 years ago. And so we're really going to bring the focus back there, and hope that as we clean up our areas, and by that I mean up Opera Alley, where the emergency services building fronts on Broadway, our parking lot needs cleaning up, and we've looked at that and talked about that. We're going to clean up our house, and then ask others to clean up their area as well. So if you hear about that, it's just an emphasis on maybe that spills over to downtown, and we use it to get just a little bit cleaner.
Mayor, could I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I have been getting comments about how nice it's gonna eventually look, and if Royal Spring Park will also be better maintained than it's been, because it's right there, and it's the place where people go for community gatherings, and it doesn't present itself very well very often. And I know we're doing some things on the street side of it.
You're 100% right. About a month ago, I guess, Arlene marched down there with a bunch of public works folks, and a month or 2 months ago, and it's significantly better. In the
Yeah, they
last
cleaned
6
up the
weeks.
one cabin and cut things down, and
But it's still dog-eared.
yeah, it's still rough.
It still needs a lot of help, especially when you walk our project now, and a 10-foot wide sidewalk.
Yeah.
Overview, looking back to the spring. We've got wild plants growing out of the rock walls.
Mhm.
It doesn't present well. It's just things we can do, that we can do better.
Yeah.
So the context for our project needs to be cleaned up more, and Royal Spring Park needs a real do-over.
Mhm.
We first built, we acquired the buildings and tore down the buildings and exposed Royal Spring Park and made what little improvements there are there back when I was mayor the first time, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
So we're replacing the deck with the
Yep.
Main Street project, and it's gonna be more modern. But it's the birthplace of Georgetown.
it needs help. It needs to be reborn. Yeah,
It needs attention, it needs love.
yeah.
And there's a couple of major buildings that we're gonna ask the property owners to help us with. Awareness,
Yep.
but hopefully we'll hear about it and maybe see some improvements.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other thing is, we had been talking about coming back to the council with additions to our short-term rental ordinance. And I thought we'd be ready to bring that for first reading tonight. We are ready and have researched and we're prepared with one part of the suggested ordinance, and that is on how to limit capacity of large Airbnbs. We know the small Airbnbs don't tend to create much disruption, but some need to limit capacity on the very large Airbnbs that are a bit of a problem for their neighborhood. That we know. The other element that we're looking at that a lot of cities have included is to limit the number of days that a property can be rented. Just for relief for neighbors and neighborhoods. It can be days per week, days per month, it can be days per year. Some cities use contracts. How many specific rental contracts do you have? And limit the number of contracts over a period of time. Either limit number of contracts per month or limit the number of years. And then the property owner could make decisions on which season they might focus on, or to give them the flexibility to do that. But Devin's been researching that, and we thought we'd explain that much, that second part of the ordinance, and then see if you all have any thoughts on that, or reaction to that, or suggestions, or if you'd be thinking about it. So Devin's actually working with Airbnb company. We're making an effort to actually work with them to understand how to do this with their owners, and if they can help do things on their end that lighten the load for enforcement in the city. That'd be our best solution. So Devin's exploring that even before we bring you the ordinance. But that's why you don't have first reading tonight, but we do expect it.
Is the first part of it that pertains to the amount of people, we talked about, the ordinance that we have in place now that says you can't have more than 2 per bedroom. Is that what we're going to be looking at? Is that how we will word it?
That's what's under consideration.
Okay. And that ties back to something that we already have in place.
Well, it ties back to what we know some other cities have in place that have been tested or pretty much accepted as,
Right.
I'm getting out further than my
adult
legal
capacity
knowledge.
per bedroom is a standard that's been upheld, so.
And in our case, what we were considering is 2 per bedroom with 1 or 2 floaters. Sometimes there are couches or fold-out beds and other amenities of that type. We want to give people that flexibility, but in no case to exceed a total of 10. So that's the first half, and then we'll bring more information about that other consideration. But if you have any thoughts, what we'll need to balance is an effort to protect neighbors and neighborhoods, with an understanding that if we limit number of days or number of contracts, that you could be impacting someone's total annual income. So it's a balance between the neighbors having the right to live peacefully, as these gentlemen have pointed out earlier, versus the Airbnb right. And that's what we want to make sure that we help you get the best balance on. Any questions on that? Okay. Item 7 on the agenda is that's probably the biggest thing on our agenda tonight, because we don't have a lot of heavy business items tonight. But item 7 is a tree board presentation, and it goes along, David, with beautifying intersections and our desire to have an urban forest and downtown trees, where in the past we've had to cut them all down because the birds weren't welcome downtown.
It's always something.
As always, but thank you all for being with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. Sorry I came in a little late. The last time I was at a city council meeting, you were downtown. So I'm sorry for not being up
sorry about the
today.
switch up.
Hi, I'm Sharon Flint, and I'm horticulture agent with the Scott County Cooperative Extension Office here in Scott County. And actually it's not been quite a year ago, we, a group of like-minded individuals, were brought together through the mayor's office and through the University of Kentucky Forestry Initiative to collaborate on Georgetown's first tree week. And I don't know if you all remember, I know several of you did. I think you attended the tree planting. I see several faces that I remember being there at our inaugural event. Well, after that week, we had several different activities. I think the mayor spoke at the library and read books to children, and we had different classes everywhere, all kinds of activities. But after that, we realized that we probably needed a little more support and guidance in bringing this about. We got the news in August, and the week was in October. So this year we're trying to work a little early, although it is July and almost August now, but to get things established. So within that, we started looking and did a little bit of research and realized that Georgetown does have on the city ordinance, and I think in your packet we have that information for you. It was the Georgetown Code on Vegetation, Article 2, Section 42, and tonight we're just going to be pertaining to 4220 through 4224. But so there is a tree board on the books, but it has long been, I won't say extinct, but it just has not had much work done on it or people to come together to work toward it. So with all the different things that we see going on in downtown Georgetown, Main Street, Georgetown, the bridge and the parks and that sort of thing, we feel like this is a great time to reestablish possibly the tree board. And it should provide us with guidance also with Tree Week and working with that. Do you want to go ahead, Brian? This is Brian Roach.
Yes, I'll talk a little bit.
Okay.
So my name is Brian Roach. I am president of Georgetown Scott County Friends of the Parks, but I'm also a landscape architect and self-proclaimed tree lover. So I realize the value of trees, and a lot of my profession is helping cities, get better tree canopy and urban tree forests like you were talking about. And I think we all see and understand the need with our climate changing in the way it is. Temperatures are definitely rising. We can blame a lot of different causes on that, but they are indeed rising. There's a lot of proof of that. And trees are the best way to combat that. And so kind of what we want to do is we just want to acknowledge that, trees are part of a healthy, thriving community. Some of the most popular questions that people ask when they're moving into a community are parks and green space and open space and those kinds of things. Trees are a huge part of that. And so when we look at our downtown, the lack of trees down there now, it's hot. You go to the farmer's market and you're on an asphalt, heat island standing there burning up. Trees can help with that. So that's part of why we want to reestablish this board, is just to acknowledge that trees are part of a healthy, thriving community. We also want to ensure that the trees that we're planting are actually going to thrive and live their lifetime out. Developers right now are planting a ton of trees in our county, And unfortunately, there's a huge mortality rate on those trees. So establishing a tree board will help provide some guidance, some training, some education that can make sure when we're planting trees that they're going to live for 30, 40, 50 years. We're not planting trees that are going to die in 5 years, and then nobody goes in and replaces them. So that kind of defeats the purpose. So we want to educate, but we also want to help the city in investing in its urban tree canopy and finding ways that we can help improve that, and we can help establish that and strengthen that and have a much more healthier landscape and environment in our city, citywide. So we've talked to several people about this. One of the first calls I made was, of course, I talked to Tammy Lesby Mitchell over here, who's a good friend and sits on the Friends of the Parks board with me. Said, have you heard about this tree board thing? She's like, yeah, it was like a long time ago it was something, but it hadn't been anything for years. So then I called Andrew Hartley and had several phone conversations, and I think we're all in agreement that our purpose of trying to reestablish this board is, one, to not come back and put extra work on you guys as a city council. That's not our goal here. We want to make sure that we've got everything lined out, that we've got all of our questions answered, all of your concerns answered, that we do it with a board that's active and committed and is going to take on that responsibility and establish that. And so that's kind of our purpose for coming here tonight. And all the people that we've talked to, I mentioned I've also talked to Matt Summers down at Planning Commission. And Arlene in your office has been very instrumental in this. So making sure that everybody's on board, everybody understands why we're doing this and what we're wanting to do, so that we're all moving in the same direction and we're working together to try to establish this. And again, not that we're coming and saying, hey, we need the city council to do this, and we're willing to put the work in. We're willing to assemble the team to do that. So, and we're also going to talk, my other note here, also going to talk to other communities. We've got, I know people personally on the tree board in Lexington, Woodford County, Frankfort. So we're going to consult with all those folks and say, hey, what have you done that's worked? What have you done that hasn't worked? What can you recommend we do in trying to get this reestablished? So again, not just coming into this thing green. We're going to find the people who've been doing it and are successful at it and find out how they did it, what made them successful, and that's what we want to bring. That's what we want to bring here.
And Brad, I think we joined an existing group of cities, Hazard. There were 4 other cities that did Tree Week with us last year.
That's
Hazard,
true.
Berea,
Lexington, of course.
Hazard, Berea, Lexington,
And Paducah.
Paducah.
Yeah,
Those, yeah.
so we're
we
all
get-
over the
yeah.
state.
We can get great ideas from them. They had more time than us, and they've been doing it for a while.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was really proud of what you all put together last year, but we didn't have a lot of time to do it. I think this ought to be music to the council's ears. We've been looking for a resource. I think we need a resource just this time.
Could I ask
As
a
far
question?
as membership is out, I'm sorry, I know.
Oh, yeah, this is music to my ears. I was wondering, I have some memory that we did a tree inventory or not.
Yes, with the tree week, there was a tree inventory done, and it's also ongoing. There was one at the Georgetown Cemetery.
Okay.
There's also one on the Georgetown College campus. And the third, out at the extension office where, out at the Brooking Park where I work, they did a tree inventory there. I think also within the last year since Tree Week, they have worked at UCO also to do that as well.
And Cardone.
Okay,
They
and
did
so are
UCO
those the
Cardone.
places that you would try to concentrate on first? Or who decides where the trees is that what the tree board would do, is they would?
Well, the tree board is actually, it's outlined in the ordinance of what, they're supposed to be in charge of or to look out
Right.
for the city group for. And so part of that is the type of tree species planted, which is very important right now. I just submitted an article to the Georgetown News Graphic on, are your trees stressed? Because of this drought that we've had for the past few weeks, well, months now.
Yeah,
A lot of people are calling and saying, all of a sudden my tree's gone downhill. And it's really due to a lot of factors and brought on by the stress of the drought. So tree species, spaces, or spacing of the trees. Also, it says here, distance from the curbs, sidewalk power lines, distance from street corners, fire plugs, all of those municipal type of things, of, you know, how trees are to be placed and that sort of thing. There's also permits required. I think there's also a section in there about homeowners and on city streetscapes, what their responsibility is, what the city's responsibility is. So there's a large list of information there and duties that the tree board, you know, could be handling. And then we would also like to add to that, possibly, overseeing the tree week, which we hope will become a yearly program. And also, possibly making Georgetown a Tree City USA. So some of the steps we're doing right now is, leads up to becoming a tree city. So,
Well, we have the South Broadway property. Wouldn't that be a great place to also think about some of this initiative? And the farmer's market is in an asphalt desert. It would be nice to be able to put some trees there.
you know, a couple of years ago, I worked with the sheriff's office down there and Arlene, and there was some research done on the types of trees, you know, but I think, you know, I have my duties, they have their duties and everything, so it sort of, you know, fell apart.
I think that was the jailer who had some grand.
Jailers.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. And, but, you know, that would be something, you know, if that is an important issue to everyone in the city of Georgetown, then that would be something that the tree board would definitely be a part of. You know, making sure there is a canopy there. Of course, I've got my farmer's market hat where I know the mayor knows that I'm also pulling for a shelter down there, but I'm not sure if we'll ever get that done, but I don't give up hope.
You should.
Don't give up on that.
No, I'm not.
And I think it's important to remember too, like we're not here tonight asking for approval tonight, to get a vote on this tonight. All we're trying to do is just kind of inform you guys, get your blessing to start planning this, to start working through this. This may take us 6-8 months to get all the answers we need and kind of get everything lined out, because we want to make sure that we do it the right way. So we won't have all the answers tonight. We'll certainly answer whatever questions you all have. We've already identified about 15 people for potential board members. All those people were very active in Tree Week last year. And so we think we can assemble a board that is dedicated and proven, but we still have to reach out to all those people and confirm that. Still a lot of steps to be taken as we move forward, but just kind of wanted to come to you guys tonight, see if you had any questions, see if there was any concerns that you all had, things that you would want to make sure were done or not done, you know, as we kind of walk through this process. So you guys are kind of our first step here tonight.
I think it sounds like a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
And
fantastic.
the sooner
Mayor,
the better.
do we need a motion on it or anything?
No, I think for information tonight,
Okay.
we're okay. But boy, the technical advice that this bunch can help with.
Absolutely.
They tell me every place downtown we might plant a tree will have different characteristics and may require different species.
Absolutely, yeah.
Every single.
Right tree, right place, right?
Right tree.
Exactly.
Every place is different, so.
I
And
preach that all the
Yeah.
to
time.
not follow that is to have certain failure in a certain number of years. So
Yeah.
we need to be smart enough not to do that.
Yeah.
The magic that you all have mentioned is you already have identified a group of committed volunteers, and that will make this happen with you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to hearing more from it. And Devin, if we need to update an ordinance, since this is kind of an antiquated thing that we're
Okay.
dusting off, we'd be happy to review that and see if we need to.
Okay. That'll be part of this process, is to kind of review all that as well, so absolutely.
I was gonna share something real quick. Willow mentioned about the landscaping behind City Hall. We did go back to the consultants that are helping us, and that was one of the things we specifically asked, was for them to include some landscaping around City Hall and the back parking lot. So they will provide us a plan. Certainly let you all take a look at it and make sure
Yeah.
that it's the right species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate of landscaping, have been for quite some time. And I see us even establishing a nursery, and we've got plenty of pre-prime soil along Elkhorn. We've got some parkland, some spaces that have been donated to us over the years that we really haven't fully taken advantage of.
Mhm.
But when I go to Louisville or different places, even LaGrange just built a really nice pavilion, like what you were talking about. I need to get some pictures to show you and the judge. But it's amazing, and it'd be a perfect place for concerts as well as the farmer's market and all kinds of events. So I'm a huge fan as well.
Yeah.
The cemetery, you know, it's a beautiful cemetery.
Mhm.
The trees aren't gonna last forever.
Correct.
And I don't know that we have a replacement plan in place to do something now for the next generations to come. The generations that came before us obviously did something because it's got a beautiful canopy. But those are the kinds of things I'm kind of thinking about. To take it a step further, I did meet with the jailer. He and I have had a couple of meetings, and he's a fan of landscaping, and going out to the interstate is something I've advocated for quite some time, and something that we're moving towards. But he's offered to provide the labor. If we can provide the plans
Mhm.
and the materials, then they'll provide the manpower to get those kinds of projects done. Not just out by the interstate, but other places as well.
Yep.
So,
With some of the Georgetown beautification that I've been involved with Linda Riley and the Georgetown Women's Club, have spearheaded that and have asked me for consultation and that sort of thing. But the jailer definitely is a big help to that, because they have helped plant many thousands of bulbs
Yeah.
across Georgetown and Scott County.
well, this past weekend, I was at Norton Common, and are you all familiar with
Uh-huh,
Ryan's
yes.
Norton Common? It's amazing to me, the trees and the landscaping in that neighborhood. It's in Louisville, off of Brownsboro Road. It was beautiful. I couldn't believe how many, trees that close. Quite honestly, they were closer to the curbs and sidewalks than you would think. But whatever species they had, some of them were like willow oaks, and different ones, I guess, were maybe appropriate for.
Yep, and that's the thing. I mean, you can plant a tree just about anywhere. It's just got to be the right tree.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's certain trees that'll tolerate that environment. There are
Yeah.
certain ones that will not. So.
And I don't mean to belabor this at all, but the landscaping is absolutely something I pay attention to, and these Bradford pears, to me at least, have seemed to have gotten out of hand.
Yes.
You see them growing everywhere now.
Yeah.
And maybe that, I don't know if that's still on our approved list, but
No.
perhaps it ought to be taken off.
Yeah.
It
Most-
would-
Most cities have taken it off. Frankfurt has actually had offered a bounty this year.
Yeah.
So if you cut your Bradford pear down, they paid you like $1,500 in equivalent trees that other nurseries
Right,
donated and
right,
stuff.
right.
So
Which saves them that much time in replacing electric lines. when they get
Exactly.
Split apart, getting blown down.
yeah, yeah.
They actually work with the Division of Forestry as far as getting trees there, but you mentioned having a tree nursery. See, when you said that, I thought of that tree bounty. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
this would work well into
Yeah.
that, coming
Well-
later. There's so many ideas.
This past year, myself and another guy, we ordered 500 trees from the Kentucky, I guess, Department of Forestry.
Mhm.
in
Yeah,
Missouri.
Division of
I mean,
Forestry.
literally for $1 a piece.
Yeah.
And you get these little saplings that you can plant. And anyway, it's a start. Maybe it'd be a
Yep.
good program to
It
bring
is.
some kids in on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one other clarification I want to make is we're talking about the tree board, but we also have Tree Week, which is going to be here at the end of October, October 9th through the 16th, I believe. So there's nothing stopping us from planting some trees downtown as early as October. If we can identify the right space and get trees donated, we could certainly make that happen to do it. Last year, we planted a signature tree in Royal Spring Park. We could have another signature tree this year and do it in the parking lot behind City Hall if we wanted to. So if that's something you all are interested in,
That's a nice
let me
idea.
know.
It's
and
got some
make that
symbolism
happen.
to it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we could definitely make that happen. I feel comfortable we could get a tree donated and definitely have the volunteers to put it in. So,
Well, thank you all very much. We look
absolutely. Thank you
forward
all
to
for
your next
having us.
visit.
Yes.
All
Any other
right.
questions, concerns?
No, maybe shoot us your contact information, and unless it was in here, I apologize if I overlooked it.
It should be on the top of your sheet there. I don't know if it has the numbers, but we'll get them to you.
I don't think it does, but
We'll
yes.
absolutely
I
get them
will.
to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8 on the agenda, GMWSS. Well, you're sitting in tonight.
Yes, I'm trying to wear the big shoes of Chase tonight, so.
Oh, and you do such a great job. too.
Well, we have two POs for your consideration this evening. The first one is for Hexagon Technologies. This is for some phosphorus removal chemical for wastewater plant number 2 in the amount of $61,800. And then the second PO is for Judy Construction, and it is for their pay app number 15, which covers the month of June, for work done at wastewater plant number 1, the upgrade and expansion, and it's in the amount of $1,690,354.04. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have about either PO.
Any questions? Is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor. I'll second.
There was a motion.
Whoever.
Motion, Mr. Hampton. Second, Ms. Mitchell. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Under item 9, City Attorney, second reading of an amendment to the alcohol ordinance.
An ordinance relates to manufacturing and trafficking in alcoholic beverages within the city of Georgetown and providing for regulations that affect the summary. 1, amend section 4-99K to establish consistency with 2022 Texas House Bill 253, which provides age requirements for employees selling and serving alcoholic beverages and exceptions thereto, specifically lowering the minimum serving age to exclude persons under the age of 20 from parks. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Texas, 432-4-3037, georgetownky.gov. Introduced and fully read the first time July 11, 2022. Followed for read the second time July 25th, 2022.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. There any questions? If not, we'll call the roll.
Mrs. Hamburg?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Lowkey?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Saint? Yes. Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, item 10 under finance, a municipal order approving our engagement letter with financial auditors. Hi, Stacy.
Hello.
Did we make you come tonight just for this one item? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. You've already approved this for GMWSS, so this is just our separate engagement letter for our piece of it.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Ray. And thanks, Tammy. Second. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 11 under Chief Administrative Officer is a very oddly worded municipal order.
Yeah.
A municipal order approving replacement of end-of-life switches. If there are end-of-life switches, we should replace them.
We need to know where those are at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting wording. I assume these are switches that are at the end of their service.
That is correct, yes. Switches are the piece of equipment that connect the end user PCs and printers and all the various devices back to the server. We have 9 of them at 3 different locations. So this will be thoughtfully split among the city and parks and planning, and it kind of saved them all up till they all are going to run out of warranty. So
Sounds good.
it is unavoidable expenditure for the rest of our life.
There a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Was that a second, Tammy? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And finally, item 12 under Fire Department is municipal order approving some items for surplus. What we got, Tim?
That's 3 vehicles.
Oh, 3 vehicles, good.
We just got our new Tahoes in, so it'll be a 2014 Explorer, 2016 Explorer, and a 2016 Chevy Tahoe that we'll be turning back in to Enterprise.
Okay, so those are, the return vehicles are part of our initial Enterprise vehicles, Stacy?
These are some of the ones that were approved in the 2022 budget. They're just now coming in.
Okay.
They were approved in the previous budget, and
Well, we simply surplus them and let Enterprise take care of all those
Yes,
details.
yes, they sell them, we roll the proceeds back into the lease to lower the lease payments.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you, Karen. Is that correct? With the second? If there are no questions, all in favor say aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you, Chief. We're to that part of the meeting for council comments. Tammy, can we start with you?
Yes, I've said a couple things. First, I have heard from several of the nonprofits who received some of the funding from us, thank you cards, phone calls, etc. And they each were wondering what the next steps were. And I told them that I believe that we would be in touch with them, that City Hall would be in touch with them. I hope I didn't overstep on that.
Yeah. So what we've done so far, we've been, we had a new application process for all of our nonprofits for this budget year, not just for the ones the ARPA committee reviewed. So we are in the process of, we've finalized the agreement that those entities for our general fund budget allotments are signing. We're in the process, I've gotten about half of those out, I've got to get the rest out. For the ones that received funding from the ARPA committee that council approved, we're going to do an addendum to that agreement. And if it's an entity that did not receive general fund money, they'll get the regular agreement and the addendum. But we want to make sure that we've included all of the appropriate language from any federal guidelines in that addendum. So we've just got to draft that addendum. Once we get that out to those entities, and they sign that, then we'll make sure we've got any other legal language covered. If it's for property purchase or anything like that, we'll make sure we've addressed all that. But we've got to draft an agreement for them to sign to be able to receive those funds.
Do we have a feel for timeline on that, Stacey?
I would hopefully, probably within the next few weeks. Like I said, we're getting the general fund ones are going out and coming back right now. So I would say August will be when we'll try to get all that straightened out. Andrew and I just got to research the ARPA guidelines and make sure we've got that federal language in there.
And different ones obviously need the money at different times.
Yeah.
Some people haven't even moved on their property yet. Others are in the middle of things and are
Yes.
waiting for the money now.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Another thing I wanted to say is thanks again for the tree board proponents for coming in tonight. I think it sounds like a great idea. And whatever the next steps are, I'm happy to do what we can to see that through.
Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. It's council comments, but I want to appreciate the wetlands education. I've always been afraid of wetlands. I haven't understood them, and maybe this is our chance to understand better. So, right on, good.
Yeah, and really, was it Casey, is that right? Yes, sir. Yeah, it kind of made me think a little bit about Royal Spring. I don't know if there's any restoration that can be done down there. I know that's kind of an expensive thing to do, but it's kind of interesting. We've got engineer that specializes in wetlands, and we've got the landscape architect, and we've got Sharon, we've got some folks here tonight.
Absolutely.
So, anyway.
I was gonna say, I didn't want to speak up, but with the tree board, you can also incorporate that into some of your stormwater regulations to get more of those trees into the green infrastructure for stormwater.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there, so you can look at that.
No, that's a good point.
We sound like we have another volunteer for the tree.
Well played.
Yeah, that's it there.
Just something that, as Casey was talking about with his problem, and this is something to really address Deb and just to think about. And where we're having the neighborhoods that a neighborhood has been developed, and then one butts up, like his is directly butt up with it. We're having that in different areas of town. So then you have two competing homeowners associations, basically that are in the same neighborhood. Is there some way to address that they need to be compatible with each other or any of that kind of stuff? Just something to, I'm just throwing something out there for you to think about how we do that. I mean, we've had some trouble in the past with homeowner associations, so we've now made everybody have a homeowners association. But now we got a situation where there's two associations butting up at the same property, really against each other. That's causing some issues. So that's just something just to throw out there with your great mind.
Mhm.
and your researchability, to see if there's anything we can do to make them more compatible when they bump up with each other.
And this does come up a lot, and I'm only asking, you don't have to give a full explanation, Andrew, but I remember, it was years before I got here, but I think the council was considering some kind of HOA ordinance, and it didn't pan out. I don't know what that was directed at, Andrew, whether it was this issue specifically.
Yeah, so the ordinance that we were considering as a council was modeled after some state legislation that has been presented numerous times, and it's more about, like the Bill of Rights for HOA residents. You know, the HOAs have to operate in a certain way, they have to have a certain amount of documentation provided to them. We were even gonna try to include realtors associations, say, hey, these are minimum standards, you gotta hand out this information. It was modeled after some legislation in Florida. It wasn't anything specific, it was just a very broad HOA Bill of Rights. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Evan.
Yeah, I just wondered if it had anything to do with this specific issue, because it is happening. I mean, developments have several, and we see it coming through, because we use stormwater, BMP agreements, and we require them to be tied to a responsible entity, so you can see the kind of competing HOAs. I would love to look into it.
Yeah, in Pleasant Valley where he's at, out there, it is, when you, you drive down Old Oxford, and now it's all opened up across, but that was different developments than what was coming down on, off of Cynthiana Road, so that's huge out there now, so they all need to kind of be consistent if you're in that area. I'm not a big fan of HOAs on the sink side, they do have their usefulness as well, but I think we're gonna run into more problems, just like what he's bringing up to us now. As time goes on and we're developing more and more, we may run into more problems if we get headed off. So that's just a conversation for the council and the fall for you all to look at. That's it.
And it did seem like just a couple of years ago, we got a lot of HOA complaints.
You did.
They haven't been as frequent, but there for a while, we got a whole bunch of real complaints about real bad HOA behavior, where those managed by a management company out of Louisville. They seem to be taking real arbitrary actions.
Yeah. I'm in the one that I'm in, controlled by Dominion, or Omni rather. They're paying Easter. They're overly picky on some things and other things are not, and then they try to enforce what really is city ordinances that they have no jurisdiction over, and kind of stuff. So I wish they were local, but nevertheless, so they have their place, but yet on the other side, they can be intrusive as well. But anyway,
Okay. Anything else?
no, that's it. Thank you.
Nothing, Mayor.
I've gotten a few calls because school is on the horizon, and I don't have overly good answers about where we're at with the Cardinal Drive issue. If we have an update, that would be great.
Sure. That's been evolving very quickly,
Okay,
just in the last week or so. The Cardinal Drive is a part of our CMAP grant, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant. We started this 6 years ago when there was no Red Cross in high school. There was only Scott County High School, and it was very, very crowded. And Cardinal Drive didn't work. It just completely failed during the school year. It got completely bogged down. So we kind of made it work. We forced a solution on it by using police presence. We switched the one way twice a day, and through police overtime, we forced a solution on that problem. It's very expensive, so we wanted a physical solution. We wanted to fix the problem. So we were successful in getting this TAP grant that was going to make physical improvements to Cardinal Drive, and originally we hoped the intersection with 32. That's where the real problem is.
yeah.
We've been working through designs, and we're years later now. We've had 2 failed bids that we reported to you all, and we failed not by a little bit, by a lot. that we were short by over $1 million. So it was delaying the start of construction to the point where we could not do a summer project. School's getting ready to start.
Right.
And I had a panic visit from the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the director of bus operations.
Yeah, I've been getting some of those calls.
And we cannot start a construction project out there while school's going. So we talked first, Willow, about could we work through our funding difficulties and maybe do these physical improvements next summer? But the more we looked at it with school officials, we recognized the circumstances have changed so much on Cardinal Drive in 5 or 6 years. Great Crossing High School has been built. More than half the students went there. In 2 years, Scott County High School is going to be rebuilt. And there's going to be a student population at that point in time left on Cardinal Drive of only 950 students a day. We concluded that we don't need to do this project, which is amazing, I think, in today's world, that we can get by on Cardinal Drive by using MAP funds and paving it. What we think is a better alternative, and we have a meeting scheduled for later this week, I think it's Thursday of this week. We thought, school officials and us thought, a better plan to use public money instead of building a project that where the circumstances have changed. Let's ask the cabinet if we can switch this project. They're going to say no. We're going to give them whiplash. But we'd like to instead go to the intersection of Long Lake and 32 where the problem really resides, and instead of a T intersection, use the grant money to build a roundabout.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea, yeah.
So Eddie just about got whiplash. We just about killed our city engineer with that conversation in the school. And, we have a meeting scheduled with District 7, chief engineer and the funding sources from Frankfurt are going to meet me and the county judge and the school superintendent Thursday. Let's see, we decided to do that via Zoom and via Zoom. We felt like it was our responsibility to give the cabinet whiplash and not Eddie. So.
You will probably get a lot of complaints from the people in the states.
Yes.
Because they feel that it's a nightmare getting out of there now. When the new high school gets built, it's gonna get even worse for them to try to get out of there and everything.
Yeah, the roundabout will help.
Kind of like, but not kind of Derby. Yeah, Derby's good.
Yeah, they're gonna, I think there are a handful of neighbors to where the school is going to be built that have their own specialized concerns about anything that changes that cluster.
You know, the one good thing is it's gonna alleviate a headache with the colony, but it's just gonna move down the road there because they were built with one way in, one way out. There's no secondary exit coming out of there.
That's why it's never good to do a subdivision with one way in
Right.
and one way out. It's our subdivision I live in for a long time is one way in, one way out. And they had a gas explosion, or a gas leak or whatever out there last year, and parents couldn't get in to get to their kids, and our kids were stranded at home and things like that. So you always need those two. It helps.
So that's the current status. We still have a project that is the cabinet, the funding part of the grants people are looking at ways to help us be able to fund $1 million gap on an existing project. We want to talk with the cabinet about changing that direction.
Okay. And will the paving take place during the school year? If paving is part of it, the new paving? that you're talking about, or is all of it gonna wait until next summer?
We, probably next summer will.
Okay,
This was, the meeting produced such a radical idea.
yeah,
We've been focused on one direction for 6 years. And it produced such a radical idea, I think we all shocked each other,
yeah, okay,
and we're still talking about it.
okay,
And what we knew, we need to start talking to the state.
yeah.
It's not fully a well-developed area.
Just say, if necessary, milling and paving can be done off hours, even at nighttime. If it's that much of a dire need, we wouldn't need to wait for that, but.
Okay.
It's been a huge issue long before that. It was a major issue when I started working with the school system. That was 98.
Mhm.
That's been a nightmare out there for years.
And we continue to grow schools. We continue to build schools.
Right
I know.
there.
But that's the latest update.
Okay.
It's in a state of confusion.
All right,
To be totally honest, it's in a state of confusion, and we've given everybody that has worked on the project whiplash.
all right.
And now I'm giving you all whiplash. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not often though that the traffic count on a road in Georgetown dramatically goes down or changes like this, you know? And if it had happened a couple of years ago, there'd been a lot of money spent to make these improvements, and all the traffic kind of dissipates and goes away, so, I don't know, sometimes things happen for a reason.
Mhm.
I wish it were paved right now, but we gotta do what we gotta do.
Yeah,
Hopefully the state will come through and give us some funding for a roundabout or other improvements. Is there a possibility of exit out onto the bypass behind Derby? I mean, that's nothing I've looked at, but maybe there's a possibility for a right in, right out, or, you know, some type of mechanism to.
Right now, the
They
price
pretty
farm
much
is
said no
behind
with
it.
the colony, so I don't know how
Yeah,
the
there's
colony was,
the creek
colony and
separates
bridge
it.
was gonna stop them, but.
The creek
I think
requires a
there's-
bridge, and that
Yeah.
really takes that project from,
Yeah.
it ain't just a rear exit, it's a bridge.
There's some evidence that there was an intent, we just looked at that evidence recently, that there was an intent to have that road there in the colony continue out. There wasn't a bypass at the time, right? Now there is, but the mayor's right, now there's a rather large water feature to cross. But, it is within the realm of possibility.
Does it impact the colony the same way?
What do you mean?
Does the creek impact the colony?
Oh,
I'm
the
sorry,
colony is-
Derby, I meant Derby.
The Derby, the creek goes between it and kind of the colony is where the creek goes back. And then, that might be Price Smith's farm is where, because there's an inroad on the Derby that would go back into the farm, that's intended someday to go back in there. But I think that might be Price Smith's farm. But if you had just a little bit of his farm, then you could go up onto the bypass. So that's the only way out is back to there.
the only other thing, Mayor,
Great
I don't
question.
think it's too soon to start thinking about vision for the South Broadway property. I don't know what the city is gonna have in mind for that eventually. People are asking in a very nice way. They're very glad that the people I'm hearing from are very glad that we have the property and that we can do something welcoming to the downtown area with it. So that's just an invitation for council to start thinking and dreaming and imagining what that property could become.
And Willow, it's a really interesting approach that the council is gonna have to come to, in
Yep.
that it's a beautiful piece of property at the entrance to town, and it really can be something that's beautiful. But it also needs to be a really important stormwater feature.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of interest in us doing something to make it fairly pretty now. But we know that we're gonna have to design and do some big stormwater infrastructure changes
Yeah,
that might
mess up what we do.
ruin
Yeah.
or mess up what we do to make it pretty now. So even though I'm really interested in doing something to make it pretty, I'm urging a more cautious approach so we don't have to tear out something.
Mhm.
If the council entertains, if a future council, this council entertains a stormwater utility, there would be significant work done in that area. So we're kind of torn between going fast and not exposing us to risk.
Yeah. That's all, Mayor, thank you.
We do have some money allocated for that as well,
Mhm.
which I think you know that.
Yeah.
A lot of, throughout the summer, where I go to different events, a lot of towns across the Midwest, they have a piece of property like that in downtown. That's where your farmer's market is. It's
Mhm.
in a shaded
Yeah.
area where they set up tables in the park
Mhm.
rather than on asphalt in the parking lot. They take it there, people park all around it and walk in, and it's, so.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you, Andrew.
One more quick update. I think a couple of council meetings ago, someone brought up, speaking of Derby Estates, Tim Tam, or I don't remember who it was, but there was some question about when we were gonna get that work finished. And
Yeah, I did.
Yep. Eddie wanted me to pass on that there had been some supply chain issues with some concrete culverts, and that we believe has been resolved, and he's hoping to get in there in the next 2 weeks. So,
I'll let her know then.
wanted to pass that message on.
Okay, if there's nothing else to come forward, we will stand adjourned.